Beautiful. For the Zoomers, for those of you online, maybe there's something nearby that you can hold as well in your own hand. Invite you to grab it. And for the rest of us, we're going to move into about a 5-minute meditation. I want to give you permission to go sit where you want to sit, which might be the floor or it might be standing up. I'm going to just try. Go where you want to go for a 5-minute thing. Maybe if you're lucky, like an airplane row, you're next to some empty seats and you can spread out. Maybe if you're online, you could fully lay down. Beautiful. If at any time during this little reflection meditation you want to move again or pace or walk, do exactly what you need to do. Wherever you are, to actually notice where the feeling of the heaviness is or the lightness is in your body. To notice what it feels like to pay attention to your breathing and perhaps to breathe the way that you love to breathe. To let the muscles in your face fall down, tongue and jaw and throat, shoulders, arms, ribs, abdomen, waist, thighs, knees, sinking in. This meditation offering is about expanding our sense of relatedness and our depth of time. Noticing first wherever you feel ground, whatever is actually touching the ground. Feeling through the sole of your feet, if you can feel what it's actually like, the skin inside the shoe on the wood floor, so beautifully done. All the hope and dreaming that went into this floor and tending and caregiving, and then beneath it maybe concrete and layers of earth of bones of humans that have been moving and living in this space far beyond any of us who are here. Bones of migrants, bones of immigrants, bones of people who are indigenous to this land, who have stewarded this land, ceremonial spaces, all layers just beneath our feet, so easily forgotten on the shuffle to get coffee. And beneath that, layers of sediment, layers and layers of storms and rock and shifting sands, different minerals that make up this space, deeper and deeper and deeper still on this tectonic plate. Here on the edge of all life, moving, shifting, generating the earthquakes and the fault lines that make this place what it is, and farther beneath it, all the way down deep into the hot core of our earth, holding us to her. And maybe if you could actually picture the whole line down your legs and into the center of the earth, all the layers, the painful and beautiful layers. Maybe it does something different to your legs. And then from your legs all the way up your spine, vertebrae, all the way up above your head into the air that we now know we share so intimately. That as I speak from my diaphragm and my minister meditation voice, I spit out particles and I breathe you in. And farther above that, the dreamy landscape of light shafts through stained glass windows and contested stories of the light that shine through them, all the way through the roof up into the sky, a sky full of our carbon waste. Me and my Prius smugly driving over the San Francisco Bridge, filling up our air just as the light that is so gorgeous pours through. The carbon, the magnitude of our choices, the glimmering of San Francisco Airport, Oakland Airport, shining above us as we speak of interdependence. People traveling, some on business, some to see their mother for the last time. Above them still, the clouds of atmospheric rivers pulling up the water from other countries, other places, droplets trying to make their way past the swirling piles of islands of trash. The plastics from our Amazon Prime order, swirling in the most gorgeous ocean we have ever been privileged to see. The water going up in the rainbow I saw this morning over Oakland and falling on the mountains in Truckee, California. And farther still, that atmosphere beyond, the cosmos, the expansive web of galaxies in which our sun is not the center. Like that feeling you get when you saw that photo from a telescope for the first time. And maybe feeling your length to an aspirational cosmos, and the depth of this earth gives you permission to be just the size you need to be. Some of us have moved in this world learning to be smaller than we are, and some of us have moved being bigger than we need to be. And maybe feeling our depth and our length sets us just right. Noticing your sides, feeling the shoulders, the whatever the cloth was you chose to drape over your body today. Nylon, cotton, silk, polyester, the hands that wove it, the machines that made it, the oil that it is actually. And at your side, a beloved here in this room, someone known to you or unknown to you. But even beyond that side, the people at your home now that you love, your lover, your child, your neighbor, your friend, your elder. And then the people beyond that that you kind of know, the person at the grocery store, the neighbor next door, the people who make it possible that you could even be here, that care for the kids, that pump the gas, that grow the food, even expanding farther out to the people who made it possible for you to connect here, the phone that you still put GPS into even though you know how to get here, the phone you feel in your pocket, the phone you feel in your pocket made by app developers just a few miles from here, but churning out through server farms in areas across the United States in which farmers now hear the whirl of the water pumped up to cool the servers so that each of us can keep 10,000 photos. Photos of the grandma we saw on the plane ride we took who just died. But the carbon falls down on the farm. And that phone that connects you to the people you call sacred, that guides you to the places you need to be, was mined. The materials right there in your phone, mined by another child's hands, put together by another child's mother. And even further still, it is still land in your pocket. It is not other. It is earth. Feeling the width of how interdependent we are, harming and healing each other in every move we make. Our depth, the food you ate this morning, the thing you called a blueberry muffin made of chemicals, packaged in plastic, bought from Costco, stockpiling the food for an apocalypse we fear is coming, in the organs that you tend, that you care for, but don't consciously operate. To your back, feeling the chair against you or the floor against you, imagining the people who made it possible that you are even alive. Complicated parenting beings, caregivers and grandmothers, ancestors we'd rather forget, and ancestors we've never known. And in this room and Zoom of 100 people, thousands of ancestors at our backs. And their choices, their longing that they give you a world that would be better. And the brokenheartedness that it can't. At your front, your chest, your ribs, your sternum, imagining the children who are born and the children who are coming, the ones 30 and 50 and 80 years from now, who might gather in a circle like this and wonder what we were thinking. And all of it held here in this umbrella of Unitarian Universalism on a planet that has far exceeded its capacity to live, in a denomination that is reimagining itself, in a practice of religious gathering that is in universal decline. As there are fewer ministers and fewer seminarians, and seminaries close their doors, and people graduate in infinite debt for jobs that will not exist. Here we are holding strange objects that have been held now by over 200 Universalists and Unitarians who have been wondering out loud, what is the future of this faith? And maybe in this moment, held by our length and our width and our depth, maybe there's an ancestor or an image to give gratitude to. Maybe there is a grounding to remember. And certainly there is a grief that we cannot escape, no matter the shiny solution. Notice your breathing. Notice your grief. Notice your gratitude. As we turn back into our gathering, notice your feet on earth, your hands as they move, your shoulders as they roll, your eyes as they open to the shafts of light. And slowly and with the patience of both grief and gratitude, find your way back to seated. what do we do? What do we do with the reality of a world that even as I, meditate in my minister voice, I feel tears in my eyes. This morning I did a glitter blessing on my 4.5-year-old daughter because we bless each other with glitter. And even as I bless my daughter with glitter, I shed microplastics that will soon be the size of a credit card in her body. What the hell do we do? What is even our job to do? What is the future of this thing that we have spent so much goddamn time and energy keeping alive, if that's the reality? If that's the reality. So there's a feeling it could be that we just give up. Whatever. It's never going to be any different. I tried my best. I've retired now. It's possible that we give up. It's possible that we say, no, if we caucus more and put on solar panels, and if all of you gave your pledge, it's so good to see you, Pam. If all of you just gave your pledge, and if you all just gave your pledge, we could do everything we want. And if you all joined the Social Justice Committee, and if you all read Mary Oliver, and if you all read Adrienne Marie Brown, no, if you all read Brene Brown, if everyone read Brene Brown and we were all infinitely vulnerable, we would all be fine. No, if you follow my Instagram influencer, or if you just read the New York Times, no, the New York Times is trash. No, you got to read my blogger on Democracy Now! There's a move that we can make that is either to rush towards the whatever, there's no point, or the I got your solution. It's right here, if you just listen to me. Now, there's a group of people called the Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures Collective. Diane just made the greatest face. Diane was like, what? The Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures Collective. And this is a group of mostly indigenous educators and researchers from Central and South and North America who are doing experiments in teaching and art to suggest what do we need to do? What do we need to do to feel and think and relate differently in the world that is the reality we're in right now? And they have a metaphor that I want to share with you. The metaphor is this: we are living in the house of modernity. And this house has far exceeded the planet that it sits on. We've done it. 6 out of 9 indicators show that we've already exceeded the state of our earth. So it's sitting on a house that can't sustain it, and the foundation of it is the belief that we are separate from the earth. It's the foundation of our separability. And that separability lets us do lots of things. It lets us create hierarchies. It lets us feel different. It lets us think, oh, my life matters, but your life not so much. And there's 2 carrying walls. One wall of the nation state that says, I'm here to protect the people, but really I'm actually here to protect the property and the property owners. And it's got another carrying wall, which is the universal story of progress. And that universal story of progress says there is one way to become a civilization. There is one way to develop. There is actually one way. If you just follow my strategic planning process, you would have the product that you desire. And the roof over this house is the global capitalist system, an exchange practice that allows me in an algorithmic way to seek profit at all costs and use that foundation of separability to believe that I can trade all the things I want to do as long as I get the profit. And I could trade that roof out for socialism, but if socialism is still sitting on the wall of the nation state and the wall of the universal story of progress on the foundation of our separability, then shit ain't gonna change, right? And it doesn't matter if you tweak this wall and change that wall, it's resting in a framework that's not tweakable. And here's the story. The story is that is sitting on our backs, that you in your own life have felt its weight on you. And each of us is walking around with the weight of that reality on our backs. And for a while, it has worked to use a walking stick of certainty, coherence, and control. And if I can be certain about the future, and I can promise my child that the world will be better than when I found it, if I can just guarantee the outcome, and I can control the indicators and the measures, then I can suffer the weight of the thing on my back. But the reality is, and what we know so clearly now, if we didn't know it already, is it's breaking. The walking stick doesn't work anymore. We live in information ecosystems that mean the reality I'm living in is not the reality that you're living in, that our attention has been traded for profit, and that idea that I can just control and strategically plan and it'll just be fine is not working. And so here's the opportunity. The opportunity is to feel and recognize that the pain and tension we have with each other is actually an inherited mess. It wasn't all our fault that we fight over money and fight over property and fight over the way it should be. It's not all our fault that when we face the world as we know it, we feel like we can't figure it out anymore. It doesn't just work to vote anymore. It doesn't just work to organize anymore. No, not any one of us can figure this out. It's a circular issue. We won't figure ourselves out of the decline of religion. So what do we got to do? They say that we have to build the individual and collective stamina to feel the weight on our backs, lift it over our heads, bring it to our front where we can witness it with loving eyes, and then compost that shit. Shit is their word. They say we have to compost it. And the composting process is a process, right, of actually hospicing something, which means something has to die, while simultaneously midwifing something, because it has to have enough goodness in it to nurture the next bit of life. And they say composting because there's no clearing the decks. It's not like we can live in the house of modernity and just build a new house, because I can't build a new house without the thinking that just shaped my whole life. I can't build a new house from within the house that has shaped me. So the task then is to let the house hospice and to let our imaginations, our capacity, to give it a dignified death. Imagine giving patriarchy a dignified death, right? Imagine giving colonialism a dignified death. Imagine it being given a dignified death while at the same time midwifing something that has a birth of integrity. That a future that we want to nurture doesn't come from a forced labor. It comes because we've dignified something's ending with ritual and attention. That we stayed present to its over. And then from its death, that we can actually see the beginnings of something else that we did not control and we could not predict, but we stayed present to. Any of you who've ever been present at a birth know this. Don't rush a birth. So there we are, right at its precipice, both hospicing and midwifing. And while we do it together, gathered around the compost, we have to be able to withstand the smell and difficulty of it. So much of what we've learned in our culture is how to avoid pain and discomfort. Even our concept of wellness is about not being uncomfortable and feeling nice and at ease. But what if? I wonder what would happen if our congregations were the places where we expanded our capacity to be with the thing that needs to die without throwing up, throwing a tantrum, or throwing in the towel. And that's the 3 ways we can find our way out of it. So in the Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures, they talk about when you throw in the towel, you think, I'm not part of it, I don't have to deal with it, as if you could leave. And you throw up because you're so disgusted by it, you can't even stomach it, you're not even effective. or you throw a tantrum. Do I need to explain? To think that I can show you how mad and disappointed I am and that I don't want to be part of it and it's not really my issue. Can we together, can we let the thing die that you are watching crumble around us right now? I think there are ways that for some of the people in this room, you had an experience where education systems and governance, maybe even some financial systems or neighbor systems felt dependable. But there is now an experience for new generations that an elder cannot look to a baby anymore and say, I have left this world better for you. And it is a grief that I think we secretly sit with all the time. And then the child, the youth who looks to you knows it. Our youth know it. So then what the hell is our job in such a broken, intergenerational world? What would it take for an elder and a child to compost together? Now, this metaphor from this organization has completely shaped the way we're working with congregations. And one very risky thing that we like to do with congregations is talk about what needs composting in Unitarian Universalism. What are the structures that we cling to because we think they're shielding us from the world, but really they're a crumbling foundation? And one thing we say is that what would it feel like if we actually composted our religious tradition to see what wanted to be born? Yeah, right? Tricia felt that. What would it mean if we composted the chalice? Now, I want to say that I think we have a theological argument for doing it. You have heard the story of Hans Deutsch, probably from here. So our chalice, the symbol of our tradition that some of us wear around our necks, that came out of 1941, World War II. Reverend Charles Joy was the leader of the Unitarian Service Committee in Lisbon, Portugal. And at that time, what they were doing is they were trying to get refugees out. And Portugal was one reliable port to do it. So the Unitarian Service Committee says, we need to look a little more official. You know, they were staring down authoritarianism then too. But we need to be a little more official. We need a seal to put on our paperwork so that when people are trying to pass the British blockade, they can get out because it looks official enough. So they hired Hans Deutsch, a Jewish Austrian refugee artist. And they said, make us a symbol that we can put on these navigation certificates. So a Jewish Austrian refugee took a chalice, a Christian symbol. And what is normally in a chalice? Wine. But not wine, the blood of Christ. Thank you, Pam. Yeah, the blood of Christ. That is not a small thing. And this is where I like to have a little fan fiction, Unitarian Universalist fan fiction. I like to believe that that refugee staring down the threat of Nazism and totalitarianism took that cup of wine and poured that shit out. That's what they did. And then he set it on fire. And that became the symbol of our faith. That's where that symbol comes from. So it's not the symbol that shapes us, it is the creative act, the willingness to do the thing that transforms it, the willingness to stand on the front porch of our theology and say, what is on the horizon and how do we make space for it? And then what would emerge if it could come out? What would be possible? So we've been gathering groups of Unitarian Universalists all over Northern California, over 200 now, to sit with the compost of Unitarian Universalism. And they have been dreaming up the worlds, asking themselves this question, I wonder what would happen if we composted patriarchy. Who would mourn, and how would we support them? I wonder what would happen if we had a funeral procession for all the things in Unitarian Universalism that don't quite feel right anymore, but we don't know what to do with them. I wonder what would happen if our congregations planted redwood seeds at the center and they changed their building in response to the thing that was growing within, including the very willingness to abandon the building in support of the old growth forest. I wonder what would happen if all the ministers and all the DREs had one list of names, all of us. And we designed what was needed to meet the moment now from the whole list and not from the fragments of separated, competitive congregations. I wonder what would happen if this place was an artichoke with the biggest heart. These are the things that people ask themselves and then build worlds together of what they'd like to see Unitarian Universalism do. You're all holding a little item. Those items in your hands have passed through over 200 Unitarian Universalist people who have all been holding them and clutching them and thinking to themselves, what would happen if our collective capacity was to learn how to hospice and midwife together? What would happen? So your little item, right? Notice your little item. These items come from the Goodwill. These items come from the inheritance of a sand tray therapist in San Francisco. And these items also come from an Amazon package from the Play Therapy Center. So even these little items themselves don't rescue us. This cute little thing I've made is not the solution either, even though it's very cute, right? What it's trying to do is unlock the way we think and feel. And when we unlock the way we think and feel towards what's needed and out of our longings for coherency and control, then maybe what we'll notice in the moments of crisis, for you as a congregation, for this community in the face of the world we have, or for our denomination, what we'll notice is not the product of a strategic plan. It'll be that at the moment of crisis, we have the relationships, the curiosity, and the creativity to create better options. And instead of being on sides, pushing and pulling for our authority and our power, we sit on the same side of the table, in which there is a future worth composting for. Where we'll move next is to see where you are at with this premise that you may or may not actually agree with. That something needs shifting and changing in Unitarian Universalism to meet the moment we're in, to rebuild the intergenerational relationships. You are invited to come to the table, and you are invited to actually bring your little figurine and find out where you want to place it. As you walk over this table, you might actually see something that feels very familiar over here. Cars, houses, cell phones, clocks, Elon Musk's ship, van life, trophies and awards, trash cans, a gentle snuffleupagus, a composted chalice, and the grief of what must go and what might be born. And then these visions here are all visions from other UUs about the future of our faith. I invite you to come up and place your figurine where you feel called to your attention. It might be that you are someone who's grappling with what we do right here, in the center of the world as we know it. It might be that you are somewhere here asking the question of what are the bridges between the world that we experience and the worlds that we dream of. Or it might be that you're one of those wild imaginers who is already picturing what you could do if you stopped fighting about the budget in the building. So here's what I want to invite. Come on up. Paul's going to sing us with some music. And find out where you want to go. And we'll build this little world together. Beautiful. You'll have a chance later after the service to come see this world you've created. There's some pretty provocative things about this world you've created. I want to offer it a little blessing, and then we'll let it live here for a little bit, okay? Here is a little blessing. Now, I wonder what would happen if the sloth tended the money, and if the streets of our world were held by the grandmothers and the grumpy dragons. I wonder what would happen if spaceships became food, and if the witches and wizards guarded the place that we wish we could care for more deeply. And I wonder what would happen if we gathered in the middle of sacred outdoor spaces and people came outside of their doors to meet around a new kind of chalice in the earth, emerging from a world we made more possible. And I wonder what would happen if the snake from Genesis, the snake that guides people out of fake gardens and rude gods, I wonder what would happen if that snake guided us to a bolder future. May it be so. Amen.
Oh